Yeah, so my short-term goals for United Way are to really get to know and understand all of the players in the community, residents, recipients of the services that we support, business leaders, folks from different sectors, nonprofit leaders, really to get a perspective on where our organization is performing well, where do we have the most substantial impact in terms of our work and our investments in nonprofit organizations, and building those relationships and connections. I've heard and probably from over 60 to 70 different people on their perspective on our organization and our value. And so I've been really taking all of that information as data, right? And thinking about where we can foster continued growth for the organization, where are there critical issues where we need to address through collaboration and partnerships with our nonprofit collaborative agencies. And so for that, it's really an orientation in this first couple of months here, identifying and mapping out the issues that we need to be addressing as an organization. Long term, I think kind of building from that is really thinking about how we can deepen our impact on some of the most critical issues impacting our communities. So we have a network of over 30 nonprofit organizations, and I do believe we have a leverage to think about how we can, through a results-oriented orientation, address issues around childhood trauma, address issues around family homelessness, address issues around economic instability for working families. This is, I think, where we have an opportunity through collaborative partnerships, through bringing different sectors together to really make an impact and improve the quality of life in this region. We serve 22 communities, 22 cities and towns, and that ranges all the way from Littleton all the way out to Athol. So it's a wide geographic area. And I would say obviously the big municipal hubs that we serve are Gardner, Leominster, and Fitchburg. Also in Athol, obviously, it's a pretty significant community. But we really engage all 22 communities, right? We have varying levels of need in different cities and towns. We have some residents in some towns who are doing pretty well and others who are not doing so well. So we really want to think about how we can engage every community. It may not necessarily be through funding nonprofit organizations to address critical town or city issues. We might have a relationship with a town where we actually do more volunteerism and education around how they can get involved in improving the quality of life for their friends and neighbors. So varying levels of engagement across all of our cities and towns, because each city and town is unique. Yeah, FamilyWise is a program that enables people to access low-cost prescription drugs. And so we know that the cost of health care is one of the most significant issues in our society and our community, and access to some of those prescription medications that folks really need, whether they are dealing with chronic issues like diabetes or heart disease. We're seeing more and more incidents of people having to go deeper and deeper into their pockets to pay for this. So FamilyWise essentially is a way to aggregate all of those different products in the marketplace and identify the most affordable option for you, and really connects people to an affordable platform to buy and secure the medication they need. So, and you get more information on that on our website. So Mass 211 is an information and referral line, kind of like 411, but you can access community, social, and human services. So if you need to access a local shelter or a food pantry, or you want to find an out-of-school time program for your young child, or you are struggling with a particular issue around access to basic needs and community benefits. 211 is an information and referral line that's statewide, but the call operators all have localized data on where those resources are located. It's a 24-hour service. It's a free service. And we find that it is an easy-to-use platform because people are accustomed to dialing 511, 411, 311 for their various services. And this is an easy-to-use, easily accessible, what I would call army of information and referral specialists who can help you with your needs. So we know that there is a significant disparity in educational outcomes for low-income families and families who have particular characteristics or dealing with particular struggles in our society. By the time children get to kindergarten and third grade, there is a pretty significant word gap, right? Some studies show that there's actually over 10 million less words that some children are exposed to versus others. That's kind of the biggest gap. Not unique words, but words said every day. And so you learn by contextualized literacy. You learn by engaging in literacy on a day-to-day basis. So our biggest piece around that is when you have literacy that is where there's a disparity in a particular community. The traditional approach on that has been have one of those book giveaways, right? So you go to a local library or you go to a local housing complex and you give away books and you give away information on literacy. What our early literacy zone does through our Footsteps to Brilliance platform is it actually takes the concept of a book giveaway, but it puts a 21st century frame on it. So the effort really is using technology where people can sign up for a free app. We also have tablets that we can provide for some people, and they can go on and they can access a million different literacy tools for their young children. It toggles in English, it toggles in Spanish, and we are partnering with 9 different school systems to utilize this. The biggest, I think, population of consumers around this are families that don't have their children in traditional pre-K programming, where they're not exposed to a lot of these educational options and tools. And so it allows a parent to do these exercises with their child. And also what we can see on the back end is we can see how many children engaged in this, how many nonprofits use this, how many exercises were done. And we've had, at this point, over 100,000 different exercises that have been completed with children and parents across our community. So we're really, really happy about that initiative. Yeah, so Youth Venture is an entrepreneurial program for young people. It teaches children, young people, skills development and civic engagement through experiential opportunity. What do I mean by that? Well, essentially what it does is it takes a group of youth, and we split them up into teams, and they will think about and address critical social issues in their community, whether it be access to food, or blight in their community, or bullying, or in many of these social issues that impact us, protecting our environment. And they'll come up with a social project to address that particular issue. And they get a little bit of resource, they get some consultation, and they come up with really a business plan to address those issues. So you're teaching kids entrepreneurial skills, you're teaching kids civic engagement, you're teaching them about the issues impacting our world, but you're also teaching them how to kind of make a case, make an argument to teach people in our community what's happening. And what happens typically is they go through this process, identifying the issues, coming up with a plan, and then they pitch that plan to a group of panelists, people from the community, kind of like a Shark Tank scenario, and then the winner actually gets a prize, gets some financial resources to actualize their vision. So it's a great program. We work with Mount Wachusett Community College on that initiative and a number of different schools and nonprofits, and it really, I think, encompasses civic engagement, youth engagement, skills development, and addressing social issues all in one package. So our Supplemental Basic Needs program is really a program focused on helping people with issues that come up throughout the year that may have a negative impact on individuals and communities in our society. So, for example, there may be a situation where we're seeing higher rates of hunger in a particular community because an event happened. Maybe a company shut down and there's less income for a group of people. Pulling together our resources to provide some relief per that situation. We unfortunately just had a fire in Fitchburg where we had a number of residents that were displaced. A person tragically lost their life. We were able to take our Supplemental Basic Needs Fund and put that into a relief fund for local residents to access basic needs, to get rehoused, and to put their lives back together. We've also used it for, we had a situation where we had a homeless encampment because of some public health issues had to be kind of removed and taken apart, and those residents had nowhere to go. So we we're able to put together utilize this fund to increase shelter capacity in the wintertime for people who are experiencing homelessness. So it's really a nimble fund that we can deploy rapidly to address issues that come up in the community. The other piece is the Combat Hunger Initiative. The Combat Hunger Initiative is really focused on how we can get companies, churches, schools, businesses to do food drives, to work in food pantries, to resource food pantries, to get involved in hunger, to serve meals, to package meals, do some fundraising. And it's all around bridging connections between those who want to help in terms of nutrition and access to food, and those who need it. And we are working with a number of companies. We've had a couple of champion companies that have been working with us, AIS Systems, Johnson Controls. A number of companies have worked with us in getting their workforce on board, helping us with the distribution of food, raising money for our food pantries, and really getting out into the community and engaging folks who have that need. So in many ways, United Way is what I would consider sort of a backbone agency for nonprofit organizations, specifically social service organizations in our community. So we engage those 30 organizations through a number of different ways. We provide critical funding to organizations to provide services to their residents through a competitive, transparent, grant submission process. But we also provide a number of other resources and tools for that group. We provide training and technical assistance. We bring organizations together to work and collaborate on tough issues that not one organization could fix or correct on their own. We build collaborative movements around particular issues. So just the other day, we're meeting with a group of organizations on how we can create a more user-friendly environment for people who want to access heat and food and clothing, those basic needs, and creating a system where people have a sort of a no wrong door approach, where those services are coordinated. So there's the critical funding to organizations, there's the training and capacity building for organizations, there's leading these flagship initiatives that we just talked about, and then there's the sort of convening organizations with the understanding that no one individual, no one organization can solve these tough issues that are impacting our community. So we do the collaboration through a number of different mechanisms. Yeah, I have to say that's my favorite day of the year. We had over 600 community residents from various businesses, some just coming out as families. We've had schools, different institutions, all coming out, deployed across our region and working on critical volunteer projects. Everything from fixing wheelchair ramps to picking apples for the local school lunch program to painting murals to beautifying parks and playgrounds. Everything that you can think of in terms of heart and hand. We were so encouraged by that volunteer spirit. So we had 600 people across our community, over 80 different projects, and that's a record for us. We have not had that many people in our day. We usually hover around 550, but we had over 600, which really, I think, goes to show that we are a community of giving spirit. And we are a roll your sleeves up community, and that's something that's very encouraging to me in the work I do. I'll add one other thing. Since I've been in this position, which has been over 2 months now, aside from our day of caring, I have encountered a volunteer of some sort in every day I've come to work. Whether that be a board member, someone at a food pantry, someone coaching football, every day I come across at least one volunteer. So that volunteerism is not just about our day of caring, but it's about that year-round spirit of supporting our friends, neighbors, and institutions that need that help in our society.
If folks want to become involved as volunteers with the United Way, or if companies want to become involved in a way that is philanthropic to the United Way, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So they can go on our website, uwncm.org, uwncm.org, and there's a link to lots of different volunteer opportunities, lots of different engagement opportunities, ways in which you can give, ways in which you can click and understand different issues that are impacting our community. I think one of the things that I enjoy most about working with United Way is that when you look at our supporters, Yes, we have business leaders. Yes, we have titans of industry, and they're so important for the work we do. But the vast majority of our supporters and our volunteers are everyday people. It's the nurse, the fireman, the foreman, the teacher, the bank teller, all doing what they can to help those who are most in need in our society. And that happens on a day-to-day basis. It's really building an army of community volunteers who are putting their stake in the ground and saying, I'm not good with hunger. I'm not good with homelessness. I'm not good with youth not having opportunity, and I want to get involved. And so that's the sort of the everyday people nature of our work, I think, is what makes us so special and so unique. United Way is a portal to do good. And whether that's through volunteering or giving or advocating, we want to be known as that platform to connect people to opportunity to improve our community.
Sure. I'm brand new to the Community Foundation. I come to that job with a long career in, I would break it up between government and nonprofit. Most of my work in the government space has been around economic policy and small business and entrepreneurship. In the nonprofit world, I've done a lot of work between community development and economic education and policy work. And my career has been along of several different issue areas, all here in the Northeast, primarily in Maine and in New England. And it's given me a variety of experiences on the side of the table of the nonprofit. I'm used to being the person looking to foundations for support for our work, and so I know what that's all about. And I've also worked on a variety of issues. And as an economist, what I've learned in those experiences are two really important things for this job especially. One, the role of government and civic leaders working together is just extraordinary. People traditionally rely on government for the answer. What I've learned in my experience working on both sides is that these civic engagements, civic partnerships, where business leaders, civic leaders, government get together and work together and find solutions to problems. And the other thing, as an economist, I learned is that a strong, healthy economy supports what we call resources that are like arts and culture and other kinds of resources in a community. And it also supports a strong education system and supports social networks that support folks. On the other hand, you've got to have a strong education system, amenity resources like arts and culture and beautiful landscapes, and strong education and social networks to have a strong economy. And so the interplay of all these factors that I learned in my past career, how they all fit together, is a perfect education for the Community Foundation, whose job really is to look at all these things come together and find a way to help bring them together for the benefit of the community. So I've lived in Worcester County in Holden for about 15 years. My wife Barbara and I moved here from Needham, so we've been in New England almost our entire lives. I worked in Albany, New York at the beginning, but most of our career has been here either in Maine or here in Massachusetts. We've been in Holden for 15 years. It's a wonderful community right nearby. It's the first time in my in at least 25 years of my career where I'm within a half an hour of work in home. So I actually get to have a life that's not on the road all the time. And my travels are basically between Irving and Littleton. And, you know, we can get home within an hour and a half of either of those directions. So it's a great, Holden's great. It's not in the north central region that we play in, but it's right next door. And I'm finding a lot of overlap between the people and the organizations that we work with. One of the interesting things about this job, as I'm learning, is I've had a lot of experience with community foundations, but most people have no clue what a community foundation is. Despite the fact that there's almost 700 community foundations all over the country, there are 16 here in New England. We're one of 16. The Community Foundation is a nonprofit organization created by people within a region to focus philanthropic energy to that region. And so the North Central Massachusetts Community Foundation, our job, our mission, is to help people who live here who are inclined and have the ability to be philanthropic, to have a vehicle to do that philanthropy here in the region, to keep the philanthropy here and help the communities in the region. And one of the things about community foundations that are really useful to know is that when people who are thinking about being philanthropic decide, I want to create a foundation. I may have been really successful in my business world, or a family member has left me a large amount of money, or the stock market has been great, and I need to sell stocks because I want to sell them before the downturn, and now I have the means to be philanthropic. And often people will start a family foundation or a private foundation, and what they find out is it's an enormous amount of work. There's a lot of tax laws, a lot of administrative effort, and then just trying to figure out all the paperwork around that. What a community foundation does is it offers to provide those services to people who want to start their own foundation. So rather than start your own foundation, you open a fund with the community foundation. We take care of all the paperwork, we manage the tax work, and you focus on distributing those resources to the causes you care about. The Community Foundation of North Central Massachusetts is kind of rare in that it grew out of the United Way here. It was created 18 years ago by the board and the staff, Phil Grzinski at the United Way, who decided we needed a community foundation to focus on this region of Massachusetts. And so 18 years ago, they started the Community Foundation. It's an independent, nonprofit organization. We have our own independent board. But I started in August as the first independent CEO. Up until now, Phil was managing both the United Way and the Community Foundation, doing an extraordinary job. I have no idea how he did both, but a great job doing both. And today, with an independent CEO, we share space with the United Way. We have a lot of mission in common and a lot of interest in common, but we're very independent. We have a lot of, there's a lot of places where our work is different than the United Way. And our goal now is to find ways to continue to partner effectively, but to also help people understand that there are avenues that the Community Foundation take that have nothing to do with the United Way and may not be consistent in that area. And so one of the cool things about community foundations is that because they're an organization whose mission is to get philanthropists to create funds, they're typically endowed funds. That means the funds stay in one place, and this is how most foundations work. Most foundations take a large amount of money and put it in the bank, put it in investments, and use the return of those investments as the funds that go out to finance issues that people care about. The Community Foundation, we have about $55 million in assets today, and we've given out about $40 million in grants. And that tells you about the power of an endowed fund that just takes the earnings from the stock market and puts it back into the community. So the bulk of the money that we send out into the community comes from funds that are called donor-advised funds. So when someone creates a fund with us, they direct or recommend where those dollars go. So the bulk of the $4.5 million that we put out every year comes from donors deciding where those dollars should go. The Community Foundation Board directs about $500,000 in grants a year in 4 or 5 individual funds. And the way we work is we open the grant period in January. You can see on our website, we'll announce when the grants are available. We'll set criteria for applying for the grants, and then we have about 3 or 4 months for applicants to send in. And our grants cover 3 or 4 areas. One of them is animal welfare and environment. So in terms of criteria, you need to be a nonprofit organization to get a grant from the Community Foundation. We don't grant individuals, and we don't grant for-profit companies, but nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, other foundations for reasons that might make sense, are the ones who are eligible. And then you need to be doing activity in the 33 community area that we serve. And then, as I say, we have 4 or 5 areas. One is animal welfare and environment. We have a general endowment where we're able to do work around social services and community development and arts and culture, a broad array of things. We have a really interesting partnership with the Lowell Community Foundation. This is the Neshoba Valley Healthcare Fund. When the Neshoba Valley Hospital went private, a fund was created where Lowell and the North Central Massachusetts Community Foundation share and give out grants around healthcare issues in the region that Neshoba Valley Hospital covered. And then we have an educational access fund, and that's generally education institutions and training organizations that are providing education to youth or adults, either education or training, along a broad array of areas, again, providing it to people who live here in the area. Now, you may be going to school someplace else, but you need to be from the region to qualify. Right, so on our website, it'll open the grant cycle and it'll lay out all the details for how to apply to the organization. And we've worked very hard over the years to simplify the application process so that it's not overwhelming, because we know so many of the nonprofits in the region are small and they can't be spending all their time writing grants. So we try to make it as simple as possible. The instructions are all on the website. People file their applications online. Those applications get reviewed by our Board of Directors Grants Committee and then approved by our board. Usually the application process is usually finished around April, and then in May we make the awards, and I think the funding becomes available in June or around June. This is exactly the place to go if you're a person thinking about becoming philanthropic and you want to explore a community foundation. We're at cfncm.org. That's Community Foundation of North Central Mass, cfncm.org. So if you're thinking about starting a fund with us, you should go there. If you're thinking about looking for a grant, especially now, I will say the Neshoba Valley Healthcare grants, which are open to communities in the Neshoba Valley area, is open now. So that's one that we start off early. Folks should go to the website, and as soon as you hit it, you're going to see a thing that says click here, and it'll take you right there.
Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure meeting you and talking with you, and we certainly look forward to working with you down the road.
Well, it's
Congratulations.
very excited to be here. Thanks so much.